All right, mute's off. You can hear me, I guess. Let's start 2 minutes early. And because I have 2 minutes more, I added one slide. It's the first slide. So you know how he got there? How he's so outstanding? Well, he walked, of course, in the joke. But still, not in the joke, he got there because he's got some friends, farmer friends, who told me how to do his crops and stuff. So this is what that is basically, like sharing all kinds of information. And if you have a feeling that you'd like to help each other out in this field to get better and grow and learn and be a mentor, please contact us, Finland as user group, and come and have an effect at that way. I'm Sakari, CEO of Azure MVP, 4 years now. IglooConf Studio Finnish podcast on Microsoft, 5 years running, co-host with Heikniemi, founder of Finland as user group, and this is IglooConf. Azure is a company. Now, like yesterday, we announced Glenn and Peter founded our Ghent office in Belgium and also in Helsinki, Finland. There's like 50 of us. Pretty experienced on average, customer satisfaction okay, couple of Azure MVPs, employee NPS fine. So today I'm trying to give you an overview of 3 different cases that are running in production right now. Some of them have been running for years, and some of them have been running for a couple of months, or one of them have been running for a couple of months. And we kind of go from kind of the simplest case to a more complex case in a sense. ContractZen, it's a modern software as a service application you can buy with your credit card and stuff. And then Seure, they are doing a whole platform modernization, gradual moving from an ERP system to these apps. And Outotec has an API platform and they work multinationally. So we are going to look at those architectures. We are going to look at some business drivers. We are going to raise a couple of points from each architecture, some technical details that are, to my mind, interesting. And then we'll wrap up. We'll start with ContractZen. That's what it looks like. This is what they say on their site. Probably the most beautiful governance solution in the world. I don't really know what's governance solution, but basically we are going to look at the features soon. But you can see start instantly, activate features as needed, less than €9 per user per month, so pretty cheap. So you get this idea of a modern app you can buy from the internet instantly. You can pay with your credit card. It's fast. You don't need to do any setup or any of that stuff. This is from the website as well. They have 3 big areas of features, 3 big feature sets: contract management, meeting management, and then virtual data rooms. Contract management can contain all kinds of documents, so metadata driven, so dynamic kind of solution that accepts all properties from different schemas, full text search with OCR, leading e-signature services built in, so e-signature kind of capabilities. Meeting management, discuss and share meeting materials and all that stuff, and virtual data rooms are used in mergers and acquisitions. So that's the kind of situation where there's a due diligence. Someone wants to sell their company and some lawyers come in and they check all the information about this company. So this virtual data room is that kind of a team site, or what should you call it? And this is what the app looks like with this purple skin. It's not the best skin to show in this case, I guess, but you can color it and all kinds of stuff like that. But basically you can see on the left there's navigation, contracts, HR, meetings, company register, then there's some document overview, there's meetings, e-signing on the right, reminders up there's search, you can see a part of profile picture and all kinds of features like that. So that's the kind of app we are talking about. So it's a Finnish cloud technology company. You can go check it out, ContractZen.com. It's been live since 2015. First version went live after 3 months. And that's not to say that we are great. That's to say that the client, Markus, who founded the company, who is one of the vision guys there, he had a very clear vision what he wants to have in the first version. He had just 3 features he wanted to have up. And he said, hey guys, don't do anything else. Do these 3, like schemaless data documents, do search, and it's gotta be fast and intuitive. And that's it, then we launched, then we started selling. The first paying customers came in at 6 months. So that's pretty fast if you think of a startup. If you're starting a company, then you need to have that kind of clear vision to enable the development team to move fast. Core features, we went through them a bit, but this is a bit more technical maybe. Schemaless metadata document management with full text, Google-like search, and OCR, search into the documents if they're images via OCR. Meeting management, generation stuff there, sharing, task manager to follow people's tasks, company register, so if you are a corporation, you have a lot of child corporations, then you need a register of companies and you have contracts that are tied to all of these companies and so forth. Virtual data room, we spoke of e-signature, so you can do the digital signature, and built-in security from client to data storages. You would think security would be key in this kind of an application, and it of course is. So that's ContractZen. What were the business demands if you're thinking like that? So when the people who founded ContractZen, they were thinking of disrupting something that to them seemed, and probably was, a legacy, a classic market for contract and meeting management. So we are talking of cumbersome applications that were costly license-wise and needed installing and setuping all that stuff. So these guys were thinking of doing something different, something faster, something cheaper, or affordable might be the marketing term there. This is their slogan, be due diligence ready every day. So someone wants to sell their company, it should be, all the papers should be like tip-top, they should be okay. Intuitive, dynamic, meaning that you have all kinds of different kinds of documents. It shouldn't matter what kind is your document. You'll come to understand the meaning of that. It should be fast, it should be affordable, and it should be globally available and instantly ready to use. So these were business demands, like the broad strokes. What would be some architecture principles, like fast to market? That's like, okay, they wanted to move fast. We need to build in a way that enables us to release fast. And that, of course, refers, right now, off the bat, refers to a situation Tom spoke about earlier, that you shouldn't over-engineer from the beginning. You should start solving the issues that are issues now and not start imagining some issues that maybe are not existing. Multi-tenant, so it's a cloud app, right? So it's about Tom's talk, basically. We have a lot of tenants in the same database using the same backend. Flexible contract metadata, meaning a schemaless system, properties and all that. Searchable, everything. Granular privilege on the lowest level. So that's key. If you think of the documents that are in a company, there are sales contracts, there are mergers, there are leases, there are licenses, there are work employment contracts and all that stuff. So not everybody has access to everything, and it's pretty severe if there's access to something that people shouldn't have. And server scalability and cost efficiency. If we are talking about something that you sell for €9 a person, then this one person who's coming to the application and using the resources that are in the architecture and infrastructure, then those resources cannot cost you much. So serverless is something that we've spoken, or guys have spoken a lot in this conference, and that's something that's here as well. So let's look at the architecture. We have the front end, there's an iOS app, and there are there's the web app, and then there are some integrations from clients. And front end is React, the new parts, but since this went live 2015, those parts are jQuery somewhat. Everything's TypeScript. Then we have C# backends and APIs. There's API management that is being accessed by the web app and the clients, and the web app uses directly the web backend. They are on Azure App Services. Then everything that can be logically separated from the backend resources. So one-off, let's generate a report, let's generate meeting agenda, let's generate something like that. It will be offloaded via Service Bus into Azure Functions. Now version 1, but migration is on way on to version 3. They're commanded via Azure Service Bus. Then we have the storage. 4 different types of storages, well basically 5 because soon there will be one more. But there's Cosmos DB, that's good for the documents and metadata, so the schemaless documents. There can be any properties, you can search for all of that. So there in Cosmos DB makes sense, while the tenants and users and license tracking and stuff like that, they are in Azure SQL. Azure Storage for example, the e-signature files that are cryptographically signed, they are in the storage, and cache for speed. Azure Search is key in this application. That's one of the details I will raise up later, so you will see something more about that. But basically, all the searches are against Azure Search, and Cosmos DB then has the details. OCR comes from the Microsoft Cognitive Services from the Azure, so the Vision API is there. And then the shared components, Azure Active Directory for all the access control. Then there's Key Vault for secrets, and of course, application insights. There's a bunch of integrations, webhooks and REST calls. The calls are either triggered. If a user does something, they might come from Service Bus to Azure Function and from there, or from the backend directly, or they can be scheduled from scheduled Azure functions. And there's a bunch, there's like different payment ways. Stripe is the American credit card thing. It's pretty handy for developers to use. The API is good. There's NetWiser, there's MS Commerce. You can buy ContractZen from Microsoft's new application store. So it's really transactional available there. There's some tax validation things. There's CRM, it's integrated to Aspos Cloud, handles conversions for PDF and stuff like that. And then there's the e-signature tools like DocuSign and Adobe Sign, SignHero, Visma Sign, all of those guys that can be used for signatures. Azure DevOps for DevOps story, and version control in Git inside Azure DevOps. That's the high-level architecture. I was told to have pause between slides. So this is the listing. Again, not really a good skin, but a listing of documents that have been searched. And once, of course, you click a document, then it opens a detailed view of the properties. There's like term until further notice, there's contact person, other party, there's value, there's sent for signature, there's some contract timeline on the right, some kind of feed, what has happened with this contract and stuff like that. So that happens in the document. And the search is done. If it's an advanced search, it's something like this, which doesn't really, not very good there, is it? Let's see if I can, no. Oh, yeah. It does work. Bit of a zoom. Does it help us all? So yeah, basically you can search for stuff. Contracts, results, there's type, sales, purchase, cooperation, custom type, this is some test environment, AAA test, common tags, access groups, if you have created your own access groups, term, fixed term, other party, by date, expires in text search, and so forth, apply filters. So these things, all of these results come from Azure Search. So everything's indexed in Azure Search, and then document details come from Cosmos DB. So Cosmos DB isn't used for any complex queries in this application. And Cosmos DB is used by SQL API, meaning the old document DB, if you are familiar with that. All details are fetched with a direct document key. Now, how many of you have used or are familiar in some capacity of Cosmos DB? Hands up. Quite many of you. How many of you think that Cosmos DB might be pricey? Hands up. Quite many of you. Kind of the same hands. So yeah, that's true. That's my thinking as well. When we are architecting an application or solution, you're like, okay, Cosmos DB, is it going to be too expensive or stuff? But if you do a direct document key, oh, Jesus, my animations are, well, anywho, who cares? I put them all there. So the point is 400 request units per second cost like less than 20 euros a month. So that's not pricey, right? And that's 400 request units per second. One request unit was one read for a 1 kilobyte message with the key, with the direct key. So no complex, like select this where, no where or anything, just a key. And then the guarantee is less than 10 milliseconds at the 99th percentile. And in our case, in this ContractZen case, because everything comes from Azure Search when it's listed, and we can only refer to Cosmos DB with the key for a specific document, we always fetch with the lowest possible request unit resource cost. Meaning that if the document is 1 kilobyte or less, it's 1, and if it's more, then it raises, but the only meaning matter there is the size of the document. Meaning that if the documents are small, then we get the performance of 400 requests per second with less than 20 euros a month. And 400 requests per second is pretty good. It's not pricey at all. But 400 request units, when you make a complex query and one query can be 15 request units, that's okay, that's pricey suddenly. That's not too many users who can use it in that way. But if you only architect in a way that you call with the key, then this Azure Search and Cosmos DB combination is pretty robust and powerful. But you have to build the solution so that this is possible. And this is what we've done here. And that's very cost effective, that's performant, that can be global. And that's a strong thing to have in the years to come for a startup like this that is born in the cloud. Like Martin yesterday said, this is one of those sentences that sound stupid and maybe are. Another detail I want to raise here is access control. So security is paramount. So what's going on inside ContractZen is that every call is checked on 4 access control tiers. First, we check that user has access to tenant. So this user has access to this company, this client. They have access to the featured domain in tenant, like for example, to contracts or board meetings or whatnot. They have access to document type inside that featured domain, for example, contracts and sales contracts. They belong to a group if there are custom groups set for a certain type of document, then that user has access. If they belong to a group, they have access to that document if that group is required. And in addition, the application has system-wide accesses or privilege checks. For example, can this person do e-signature calls? Can they do administration, add or remove users? Do they have additional confidential access, so-called insider access? If it's a listed company, there's of course the insider trading issue, and that might require this confidential flag that is across the board in the company for everything that they have. ContractZen summary. It's a modern software as a service app on top of Azure Paas. It's affordable. It's aided by serverless components that make it possible for the company to run this kind of thing. Data storage is critical. So Cosmos DB plus Azure Search pattern here is one that reduces cost quite much. Kernel privileges, Azure AD, those work well together. And that's basically it. That's the summary. Next up, Seure. Different kind of case. Bit of a bigger company, not that big though. It's situated here. It's a Finnish company. They offer work opportunities in Greater Helsinki. They lease workforce to daycares, hospitals and schools, short and long term. So meaning that if your kid is in daycare and one of the daycare ladies gets sick, then Seure might send a person for 1 day, that a substitute teacher or something to school, or they can offer month-long fixed employment as well. They provide workforce for over 5 million hours a year, and there are over 12,000 active employees in 3,500 locations in Greater Helsinki, so around here. So that's pretty many moving parts when you think that 1 day is a single order of a job for a worker. Business case here is that Seure is growing fast. So most in the room know that Finland has been facing some political things, sote and some other things. And I think because of this, I don't know, this is my thinking, that because of this, Seure, this kind of service that handles school and daycare substitute possibilities is growing fast and the demand is growing. So 2017 it was 82 million revenue and 2018 98 million. So that's quite a jump in short-term jobs. So old systems and ways of working stopped working. They didn't have enough hands to meet the demand of job orders and matching those workers to those job orders and having those workers available. So Seure is looking to automate dumb things, right? Why have human do something that a human doesn't have to do, that doesn't require evaluation? And then they want to provide self-service digital tooling for the customers to offer those jobs and for the workers to find those jobs. and they want to automate everything in between so that they can be more efficient. Principles, they have an ERP solution right now, but it's not extensible to the amount they need it to be. So the goal is that these new digital solutions on Azure Platform as a Service will extend and also replace parts of this ERP. Now this is something we referred to in yesterday's talks and in today too, about replacing these big things, this gradual migration from ERP to new platform, but it should be gradual, like evolution instead of revolution in the panel, like Martin said and Rick as well. So the key is to isolate, evaluate and find and talk with Seure personnel to understand the logical components, the bounded contexts, the domains that we can split from ERP or we can extend to cloud or we can replace in cloud in such a manner that it's controlled. And that's, of course, an ongoing process. That is something you do in the beginning and then you're done. That needs to be done constantly. Okay? Architecture. Unfortunately, it's in Finnish, the screenshot. I'm going to explain what goes there. The screenshot is about the worker mobile, and it's for the worker who is looking for a job. Like, I'm looking now here for a job at the daycare business. I'm a daycare professional, and I notice that I don't have anything to do on Saturday and Sunday. So I go to mobile app, and I put a time period of Saturday, Sunday, and the mobile app knows where I am, what's my geographical location, what can I do and stuff. And then it finds me the suitable jobs for a schedule that is where I'm available. And then I can pick one, I can filter those. I pick these job slots and then I apply and then I can see them in my calendar. There's navigation at the bottom where I can see my jobs and my calendar and all of the rest of the stuff. So that's the worker mobile. And it's one of the clients that Seure, that we are building for them right now. And worker mobile is something that's been in production for 2-3 months now or so. Customer web is for customers, for them to create these job opportunities that the workers can apply to. And admin web is for Seure administration so that they can do all the tax things and follow the jobs and do changes and all of the stuff like that, calculate salaries. And source systems, we have the ERP system, the older one. We have some data here and there. They have a brand spanking new Snowflake, data storage, cloud data storage from the American company. Snowflake is in Azure, but if you buy Snowflake, it's not in your Azure subscription. It's in Snowflake's Azure subscription, so it's in this image, it's an external source system. And RPA, so they've started doing robotic process automation during last year or so, and that's of course accessing all the APIs and doing stuff that removes human interaction need, for example, in some ERP form filling and stuff like that. So first off, API management is in the vision, but not there yet. We haven't done it. It doesn't feel needful yet because there's just these couple of their own applications, mobile worker and these, so they access the APIs directly currently. Now, since Seure is owned by the city of Helsinki and these other parties, daycares and schools and stuff, it's probable that these public organizations will be asking for data from Seure, and at that point, it's probable we will put API management in between. But right now, it's not there. Worker API, admin API, customer API, and Outotec API, and then there's one external API that's part of those APIs that offers webhooks and access points for the ERP to, in an event-driven manner, send data into our backends. Storage, SQL, no Cosmos DB here. The data is very relational. We are talking about work opportunities. We are talking about workers who would want to do those work opportunities. We are talking about time periods and all that stuff. Storage blob, for binaries, eventing for server. That's not being used much currently, but there are some needs that are clearly there for one-off, like salary reports or something like that. That would be nice to generate with Azure Functions. Then analytics is one of the details I'm raising up later, but there's Data Factory and Databricks mostly, and the shared things are the same as in ContractZen, except for the App Center notifications, which is used for push notifications into the mobile application. That used to be Notifications Hub in Azure, but now App Center is something that is used. Cool. So the first thing I wanted to raise is feature slicing. This has nothing to do with Azure. So it's just something that the guys are pretty happy with, the team is pretty happy with. It's a way of, if you think of building, you build your solution and you do MVC, Model View Controller or stuff like that, and you have your views in one lump, and then you have your business logic, and you have some guard classes or managers or something that handles everything related to a certain topic, and then you make a change in that one manager, and suddenly some other feature breaks, and you're like, damn it. It's a side effect. I didn't know if I fix that feature, that other feature breaks. And feature slicing is a way of getting rid of that. It's a way for the development team to get some peace of mind, because they know that if they change a business logic for a certain feature, no other feature will get broken. Nothing else will get broken. So they just need to test that one bit, and then they can go to production in peace, which is nice. Also, it adds readability, because you can organize your project in such a manner that your folders already say that, hey, this is the cart, this is the buying process or something, this is the feature, and you can go there and have all the files for that feature in that single location, instead of having a controllers, models, views folder that contains everything. So it's a lot easier for a new developer in the team to understand what's going on in the project, because they see it from the folder structure, the project structure straight away. It does result in some duplicate code. So in a simple app, that this might not be the way to go. But in a complex app, this is definitely the way to go, because the run period of an application, the lifetime, the 5 to 10 years of operational time that application has, it's always more expensive than the initial development. Anywho. So the client API and business logic are feature specific. Here we have feature one. Feature one might be the search I showed you in the mobile worker. So that has its own client views, of course. Then it has its own backend. It has its own APIs. It has its own business logic, and it might even have some of its own data access functions. So it fetches data from the database that is only meant for this certain feature or feature set. Data access surely has some shared actions, shared functions. That makes sense, because data access is pretty general in a way. But then business logic also, this is more interesting bit, I think. It also contains some generic domains, because some things should not be duplicated. For example, if you have business logic related to state machines, like some order or invoice, or in this example, document handling. Document comes in, the state is non-processed or new or open or something. Someone starts processing it, and then it moves to the next stage that says like processed. So the validation, the approval of the moving from state 1 to state B should be a single responsibility thing inside an application, and it shouldn't be spread into different features. So in this case, for example, a worker might come in and send their tax document through the mobile app, and then feature set one contacts the shared state machine of document handling. Hey, new, open tax information from this worker, not yet processed. Second feature might be a Seure administrator or processor, tax processor, or maybe a salary counter or something, who goes through the document and gets the state from the state machine. And when it starts processing, this person starts processing it, then feature one gets information immediately that, hey, your document is being processed. And also there is only single location that can validate that there's now access, this document is now being processed gracefully. And of course, forward, there can be many features that access this shared state machine. So that would be the single location for state change and validation logic. Mandatory pause. Another detail I want to raise up is the analytics. The goal in the analytics was to match worker and job, and this is a big thing. Like, we succeed in this, we save a lot of man hours from Seure. They need to match 5 million hours a year. Of course, they don't match them hour by hour, but even if they match them like, day by day or week by week, that's a lot of work. So till now, they've been matching like, okay, there's this job and there are these workers and stuff. So if we can automate that, that's fancy. So about the worker, we know the worker schedule, we know their availability, like I can work on Saturday, I can't work on Saturday, I can work from Monday to Friday and so forth. Location, where I'm at, what are my skills? Do I have a contract with a specific client? I can only go to that client because I have a contract with them. I can't go to another client. Permits, medical permit, driver's license, all of that stuff. So we got that from worker. From jobs, we have requirements, right? So we have a requirement from a hospital that this person needs to have a medical license to work with drugs. Location, nearby, far away. Bans, there might be some blacklisting of some kind of people for certain locations. And then there are balancing issues. I'm gonna say a word about them later. Basically, data ingestion, there's fast and slow source. ERP here is the fast source. They push stuff into blob storage about thrice a day, some data, and once a day some other data, and maybe even once a week some other data. And then there's Snowflake, and from there we fetch data from Azure Data Factory with a custom C# connector that is based on a connector in GitHub or something somewhere, so it basically works. And Snowflake, we fetch data like once a week or so, and then Azure Data Factory pushes the data into SQL database, where we now have the worker and job data sets that we referred to earlier. Next, what happens is that we have, for the analytics part, we have an orchestrator and a SAT solver. Now, SAT solver is basically just a fancy word for solving a situation where is this match possible? So it's a Boolean solver, true, false. Can this match happen? We have the data factory that is basically the orchestrator here. So it commands a SQL stored procedure that builds the possibilities. So the SQL does the work of saying that, hey, this job order can have these 5 workers to fill it, right? With the location or the licenses or whatever, the availability of the worker and so forth. This job can have these 5. It doesn't say which of the 5 workers should do it, but shows that. Then Azure Databricks gets it from the SQL table valued function, and currently the situation is such that Azure Databricks cannot call SQL stored procedures, so that's why we have the data factory as an orchestrator there, instead of doing only Azure Databricks. So Databricks gets data, and then inside there we have the Python SAT solver that solves the matches. So it picks and chooses the correct worker for the job today or for the week or so. And the balancing comes here. The balancing issue is such that, for example, if I go and substitute a teacher in daycare, I work with kids. Now, the same daycare with the same kids has another need the next day, then the balancing says that it should be the same person, right? The kids know me, so it should be the same person, if possible, who goes to fill that position. In some other jobs, it's the opposite. Seure tries to balance it so that it's not always the same person who goes to the same location. It's more widespread. So they try to offer a balanced offering of works. Also, if there's company A and company B and both have needs, then this other company has 5 needs and the other company has 3 needs, and there's only 5 workers available to these companies and they compete in that sense. The balancing does it so that the other one gets 3 and the other one gets 2, and the next day it's vice versa. The other one gets 3 and the other one gets 2. So that it doesn't happen so that the first one gets 5 and the second one gets 0. So there's this coefficient that runs in a timeline that if someone hasn't gotten a worker in a couple of days, now next day they would get. And then after Azure Databricks has sent the matches into SQL, then Azure Data Factory calls another stored procedure that merges, aggregates the possibilities with the results, because there's some stuff in the possibilities graph we want to send via an API to the clients. And that is then offered. Seure summary. Gradual migration from ERP to modern apps in Azure Paas, well underway. Microservices and domain-driven design ensure reliability, meaning that we are building separate APIs so we can mix and match, we can carve out pieces from ERPs, and when we start building a new API, the other APIs are not affected because of the microserviceability. New word, right? Yeah, new word, cool. Feature slicing offers peace of mind, so people know, team know that this will expand, this will grow. Okay, let's create a new feature, that's fine, it won't affect the old features. Let's change an old feature, that's fine, it won't affect the new features. Analytics process is key in automating job worker matches, so this is the moneymaker for Seure in that sense that it will relieve them of pressure. I think I have 15 minutes. And this is the last case, Outotec. In one sense, the most complex of these, at least the most code. But from a developer perspective, I think all of these cases are pretty interesting. Outotec, they do this mining technology and plant factory projects, so that sounds big already. It's a Finnish listed technology and project company, 4,000 employees, 1.3 billion revenue, 2018, and they are in the process of transforming from hardware to service company, meaning that, you know, traditionally hardware companies build a hardware thing and then they ship it and then it's done, and now they ship it, but they also want to support it and service it and optimize it and sell spare parts to it and stuff like that. Business case here is not just Outotec, but all large corporations have silos. I think these business case things, you can take any large corporation and just do the same reasons. They all have silos of data in SAP, in multiple SAPs, and they can't get that data. They don't have access. Often, like many, PLM is product lifecycle management, so it's for engineering and manufacturing. Employees have access to some of them, right? Salespeople have access to CRMs, and engineers have access to PLMs, but if someone comes to a salesperson in Australia and, hey, can we get spare parts to our hardware we purchased from you to our factory, the salesperson doesn't know which spare parts are applicable to this hardware thing that was sold there, this mining tool that was sold there 7 years ago, because they don't have access to the engineering data, to the manufacturing data. They only have the CRM access. Externals, partners and clients, they don't have any access, of course, and if they do, it's some kind of an ADFS integration that took like months to build anyway. Data quality is an issue because there's no end-to-end visibility, so, you know, who knows what's right? Someone says that this is that part, it might be, it might not be, nobody ever checks it unless they order another of those, and then it's a wrong one. So the goal is that relevant data should be visible to correct people, so that the people who are doing the job, they could make the calls, but instead they have to ask other people, hey, what's that and what's this, because they don't have visibility. They could make the call if they'd have the data, right? Solution, an API platform. See, one sentence solution, easy peasy. Make data accessible securely. Principles, in Outotec, there are different source systems. There's no common ESP. There was no common ESP. No single enterprise service bus that provided like all the messages from all the source systems. But that was fine. What was very nice with Outotec was that they only had single CRM, single ERP, global. And that's not, you know, that's pretty rare. The companies I know, they usually have multiple CRMs or multiple ERPs, depending on business unit or geographical location. So this was pretty nice. Azure AD enables faster when you think of the cooperation between companies. The old way is that there's like classic AD integration via ADFS or something. Azure AD, it's a new way of being able to call and invite external people into corporation systems. And that should be leveraged. microservice-based architecture for APIs. So if you want to offer all the data from the company out, they should be made in a manner that they can be deployed autonomously, and they can be debugged and versioned autonomously so that they don't affect other APIs. Serverless, sure. API management. Now we are talking of publishing all the data in a corporation. We need to manage the parties who have access. There's a lot of partners, a lot of vendors, a lot of everything. Data lake, central storage for raw data. So not for as a data warehouse, but just as a staging location. And this is one of the big ones that we still get questions about if we are talking with big companies about this kind of stuff. Basically, the question is, hey, we have this web app, can the query go to our SAP? Well, of course it can, but you do want to decouple your core systems from the clients that make calls from the internet, because if you allow your core systems like SAP or some other be a bottleneck for the scalability of your digital services, your mobile apps, then that doesn't make much sense. And of course, to be able to decouple, it means that some of the data you have, or most of it, should be put into a staging area or transferred into cloud. And that's the question that corporations might be worried about. Oh, we need to move our data into cloud. So this is a cool picture. I'm not sure if it's a beautiful picture, but it's from Outotec, really internal. And it's updated October 24th. And on the left, there's 4 apps: install base portal, digital inspection tool, notes, archive, and customer portal. Then there's a lot of APIs. Inside the blue area, API management. This is here, API management. So all of these boxes, APIs are inside, are called the API management. And there are 3 different layers of APIs. There's service layer on top, and you can see every application, every client has a backend, one backend solution. Then there is entity layer. There we have things like products entity, sales entity, sites entity. Sounds like a thing that if I want to know something about an Outotec product, if I have access, I could maybe send some ID or a search string into products entity and get all the information that the corporation has about that product they've offered or sold. Maybe it's something they are selling, or maybe it's something they've already delivered. So it's installed base. It's inside a factory somewhere. And then there are gateways, gateway solutions into these core apps. Here's SAP, and then this is only on-premise on the gray, and the rest are in the cloud. Dynamics, Enovia, SharePoint, and so forth. This is cool because it shows also the internal way that Outotec has organized their work. The green boxes are made by a team called API team and are in production. The yellow boxes are also by API team, but not in production yet. And the one purple box is non-API team. So I'm guessing this is an API team slide because they don't even name the other teams. It's just none. Other people. Anywho. And then there are some shared things. Permissions UI and audit UI sound like generic, sound like shared capabilities. Permissions API, events API, tickets API. So if installed base has an issue and the user writes, oh, this doesn't work, or something is wrong, data is wrong, it sends a message in tickets API that puts a ticket into Jira. That's a tool for the service desk to do their thing, to change the data, to fix the problem, something. The next slide is an architecture slide of one of these boxes. I think it's Dynamics Gateway. So there's one box, Dynamics Gateway, and this is what's Dynamics Gateway when you open it. So what you have here, you have Dynamics 365 on the upper right quadrant, and there you have Data Lake. Not sure the big folder looking thingy. That's actually not Data Lake's icon, I don't think, but still. Cool enough, Outotec. And then there are 2 web jobs that are attached to Dynamics 365. There's one that says import and that one that says export. So we export data from Dynamics and we import data to Dynamics. And those 2 guys, Jesus, very bad, double bad. I should have done what you said, Martin, and not use extension. So those two guys, those web jobs around Dynamics that have arrows to Dynamics, they are attached with long lines into Event Grid. And what did Tom speak about? Event Grid. So all the imports and exports that are to do with Dynamics push events into Event Grid, and then we have 15 Azure functions on this first row here who are interested in some ways about these imports and exports into and from Dynamics. And they subscribe into events, and they get pushed those events from Event Grid, because Event Grid is a pusher. So these guys get the events, then they do whatever they do. Here we have some text, item upsert command, case updated, service order updated in sales, da. So they send that data into queues. There's change queue, and then there's export queue. And then there are other Azure functions that pick up these changes or exports, and they push those into web jobs that push them into data lake, and then API management can be used to access the new change data via web apps, via backends, via APIs. So the event grid is the glue. That is the glue. All the APIs that we saw earlier, all of these are attached into Event Grid. So if there's something happening in Dynamics Gateway and this updated Dynamics got updated with some sales info, then the sales entity there, the second on the right from the APIs on the entity layer, gets information that some sales case has updated. And it updates its database. So 3 approaches to data synchronization. There's the Event Grid, notifies processor, and then everything updates itself, invalidates cache. Then we can query core system with timestamps. So give me data between now and 3 days ago. And then in catastrophic failures or big change or something, we get all the data. But of course, that results in millions of items in the queues. Actually, right now, there can be millions of items in Event Grid, even if that's not done. But still, there's a lot of things going on. To Tom, he spoke about correlation ID. He spoke about monitoring and how that's not done early enough. Now, this is a monitoring tool by the API team at Outotec. And on the left column, you can see there's these swim lanes. There's like 6, I think, that have been blurred. There's prod. So these are Azure functions or web jobs or some other compute nodes or units. And this is a single correlation, single process. It started on the yellow bar, gaze integration from Dynamics received event. And then the next one is event sent to queue, something changed. And the next compute unit picks it, start processing successfully, and so forth until the last one on the timeline, on the bottom and on the rightmost. It says case is not meant for skipping it. So 6 things did some work in some order, and the last one decided, hey, this is not for this. This correlation has ended. This is fine. Green, not meant for this. So if there's an event, if there's a telemetry event in Application Insights, it has a correlation ID. The guys plug the ID here, ping, and they see the whole timeline of the whole stack, what has happened, where happened what. If one API has 20 Azure functions, and there were over 20 APIs, there's a lot of stuff going on. So the monitoring is a difficult part. Another thing that they have for monitoring is this dashboard. There are 3 application insights that the timeline we just saw that they fetch data from. And these also come from 3 different application insights. Why are there 3 application insights? There are 3 application insights because Azure functions cannot send telemetry into application insights that are in different subscription from the Azure function itself. And these applications we saw, they are in 3 different subscriptions. There is a single subscription for the installed base thingy. There's a single thing for the gateways APIs and one for all of the entity APIs. So 3 subscriptions full of Azure functions sending their data into application insights in that subscription. And those are wrapped together in this view and in this view. You can scroll this down, but not in the demo. So now, single column is single application insights. We have the installed base first, exceptions, then entities, failed integrations in the last 24 hours, 14, applications exceptions, 12, gateways, failed integrations, gateways, exceptions. What's missing, what the guys are building in the development team right now, for me, all of this looks like very good already. This is pretty nice. Something that's been built during production, of course. Who built stuff like this before production? Nobody. But they've been in production since 1216. And what's the working process now is that they are building a monitoring way. There's unfinished integrations, no data for the given query. So right now, there's no easy way to have visibility into processes that are underway. Right? They haven't ended in an error, but they haven't been processed in a satisfactory speed kind of ether kind of situation, kind of gray area. Not ended yet, not failed. So how do we find those? Manually, of course, if we know the ID, but if we don't have that visibility yet. So that's what the team is doing with this. Summary. So now they're able to build digital services by relying on the APIs. Hey, I want to build a solution that shows the factories and the sales stuff together. Call these two APIs, sites, entities, and sales entities. Digital services can provide visibility. We have common practices for monitoring, for eventing, for data lake, for API management policies, access control, permissions, tickets, and those are documented. So a team can just, okay, I'll do that. Can grant access to partners or customers because it's just like inviting people to Teams or SharePoint. It's Azure AD based. Data visibility improves data quality automatically, and that's of course a big thing in large corporations currently. They build tooling. Last slide. Business drivers are key. So the key following that is the communication. Like everybody says, like we spoke earlier, it's not the technical choices that fail projects, it's when development team and the product owner stop discussing or stop having time to discuss. And that of course can be an issue if there's a time crunch. But as a development team, you guys have to make sure that the client understands that, okay, we need to have time to discuss even if there's a tight deadline. You can build it with platform as a service. Technology, it's not the issue. In some cases, if there's platform lock-in fears, go with Kubernetes. There are a lot of Azure services in good and bad, but you could see there's quite a lot of services used. The documentation is getting fairly good, a lot better than a year ago, a lot better than 4 years ago. So don't be afraid of doing it, but get some time to learn. Monitoring, important. There's a lot of Azure, but at the end, it's just problem solving and code. In these cases, it's C# and React, JavaScript. But really, we speak about Azure, this is an Azure conference, but 85 to 90% of your job has nothing to do with Azure. Doing something right takes time. So like Tom said earlier, errors is just a way of learning. We're all human. So remember to help yourselves and help each other. Thank you. I have some time, I guess, do I? I started 15 over. I panicked when I lost the PowerPoint. If you have any questions, you can ask now, or you can ask later. Sir. Yep. So any elaborations on Azure Databricks in Seure project instead of other tools? Probably team compatibility. Our team is pretty Azure specific. Azure Databricks is very Jupyter-like. So they are familiar, it runs well with Python notebooks and stuff like that. So it was something the team knew. And it worked well in that case. There's the team not sure if they evaluated other tools, but they knew that the tool fits the case, so they picked the tool that they know, kind of thing. So, sorry, can't give you a comparison of that to other tools in this case. Sir? The need to use Databricks in this case. Yeah. Why not, for example, run the SAT solver in Azure Function? Yeah, could be. So it's a Python algorithm. It could be run in Azure Function. Azure Function, of course, can maybe more easily run into memory issues if there's a lot of data. In those matching things, when we match job and worker, there are like some tens of thousands of possibilities. So we are not talking by a huge load. So they, resource-wise, it could have been run inside Azure Function, I believe. I'm not the data scientist there, but I think so. But our data scientist is the work process of the guy who did that. Is, he works with Azure Databricks, so he's not a developer. If it was a developer, then Azure Function would maybe be in the first choice. But for him, working with Azure Databricks is part of the daily job. So when okay, I got this Python algorithm, do I put it in there that I don't really know, or here where I know it works and works well, then that might be also the similar kind of answer. Other questions? Yeah, about Outotec. Yeah. Yeah. So question was about the network access and security around the Outotec and securing the access into the core applications in Outotec. So yeah. Basically, the only one of the core apps that's not on cloud already was SAP, and that's on premises. And to SAP, the access is done via virtual network and behind firewalls. So part of the network is Azure. Part of the network that accesses SAP is part of Outotec's network. Otherwise, the APIs that are there, so they're from the gateway forward. The other APIs are not behind that firewall. So everything there isn't part of the Outotec network, just the gateways that need to be secured in that manner. Then after that, we are in the space that is protected by Azure AD and other Azure tools. Sir? Great. Like all big corporations, there are multiple partners, and in this case, that was true as well. It depends a lot, I think, on how the client guides the cooperation. In Outotec's case, I can well, of course, I'm the vendor, so I have to compliment them, but I can also truly compliment them in that sense that they really gave the vendors and partners the tools to manage their cooperation how they wanted. So the developers from different vendors were close to each other and had a way of talking with each other, and there was no black boxes or closed kind of situations that Outotec would prevent some kind of interaction between partners. So that was very meaningful. At some large corporations, vendors are separated, and if they are working in the same space, that can lead to, I think, suboptimal architectures. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Ake. So now we have a 10-minute break, and we'll continue with the other Martin who just walked in. 10 minutes, everyone.